going into part 8 of what looks like a 10-part series. I can't be absolutely 100% sure that that's going to be the case. However, it is starting to look like it'll just nice and neatly end on 10 parts. So 10 car restorations and 10 parts, that would be nice. I did notice, and I'm sure some of my eagle-eyed viewers out there would have noticed as well, the Sterling was the last one out of that motley crew to be completed in the last instalment. And I did actually go as far as doing its final kind of 1980s car advert sort of shots, and then realised to my absolute horror that I'd made two glaring omissions. One, putting it next to the blue one that I did a couple of months ago, you can see quite straight away I haven't blacked the pillars, the A-pillars that go down the sides of the windscreen. Now, I can't be 100% sure that they always did that at the factory. In fact, I'm sure I've seen ones that haven't got the A-pillars blacked, and it doesn't really detract from this red one, so I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to do anything about it. But the other thing, I'd not actually fully clamped it back together properly. The casting was very, very, very slightly open, so I've corrected that so it can now have its shots. And here we've got a bit of sunlight this time, which we didn't have last time, and you can see why. This is why we mirror polish before we put paint on, because get it in some sunlight, it just looks absolutely spectacular. And that's not me crowing, I'm merely the agent that puts the metal and the paint together. I didn't make either of those things. But what of the three remaining subjects of this adventure? Well, funnily enough, over the next few minutes we'll be finding out. So the Sierra was the one that I thought was possibly lagging behind the most, but I now had a clear vision of what I wanted to do with it, so I thought that was the next one to press on with. So what I'm doing now, this was something that was completely disregarded right at the start. This was never going to be, well, I'm not saying it was never going to be on the cards, because initially, before I'd seen what was under that old paint, it very much probably was on the cards for all of these. But it quickly became apparent that it wasn't going to be practical, but then to mirror polish this casting, and then as we've gone on, I've ended up deciding to do that very thing. It's had that much work done on the casting now in terms of filing down all that extra metal that we've actually got quite a nice basis for mirror polishing now. It doesn't need to be an absolutely 100% perfect mirror polish, so here we go. I was using the little flexible sanding board there for a second just to get some of because it was still quite a rough casting in terms of like the more minor defects that you tend to get. So I used that to get a few of those off, and then we went to the pad system, and obviously once you get going with the pads, you start stacking them like that so you can rest certain areas on it to put a bit of pressure on and things like that. So we're just going, it's just the usual mirror polishing procedure. We're just going down through all the grits. We're not going to have to get it absolutely perfect, because the mirror polishing element of this, I mean, partly I wanted to mirror polish it just to prove a point, really, just because I thought, well, it'd be nice to end up mirror polishing this one that clearly wasn't a candidate for mirror polishing right at the start, and then in the end, what a twist, it's actually turned out to be quite possible to mirror polish it. I just thought there might be a nice little bit of irony in that or something, but this is what we've ended up with. It does look quite good. It has mirror polished up quite nicely. If I hadn't made the lower half of it light, it might even have been something to run with. I didn't get it absolutely perfect. You'll notice there's still a few little imperfections in the surface, especially on the front, because there was no point getting it absolutely perfect because of what we're going to do with it next, because the mirror polishing it's been done because by the way, this is the old Plymouth. This is just, in the last video I did say, oh, here it is being mirror polished, and that just wasn't true. That footage was of it being sanded a bit, yeah, and getting a bit closer to being mirror polished, but it was nowhere near being mirror polished. So this is now the mirror polishing happening. There was even still bits of the old paint in the hard to reach areas, so it really was quite duplicitous and deceitful of me to make such a bombastic claim that the mirror polishing was actually happening before your very eyes on the last video, when really it wasn't. However, it now is. So this is where we are with it, and I think we can safely say, if you look at the reflection of the grid lines in the sides of it there, I think we can safely say that's mirror polished. It is providing a mirror-like reflection. There's still one or two little tiny bits of paint here and there on it, to be fair, so I'll probably have to go around it with the precision screwdriver again, but that's where we are with that for now. So, onto the Sierra and my grandiose plan for it. It's I've hinted at using this stuff before once or twice in a couple of previous videos, but never really gone into it. It's a handy little thing to have in your artillery room, something like this. It's just an aerosol of window tint. So again, it's for like a lot of the stuff that I use. It's intended for use on real cars. So if you don't want to take your car to a window tint in place and pay a lot of money to have the windows done, you can just buy an aerosol of this stuff and give them like what looks like quite a dark blue tint. So it is very, very dark blue, but you can, in most lights, you can see the mirror polished metal still just about glinting through. So it gives it, overall, it gives it the effect of being a very, very deep metallic blue. It's still going off at this stage, so this isn't exactly what it'll look like at the end. Another little trick I'm going to do with the Sierra, the glass. I've gone around it a couple of times now, and I think more or less as good as we're going to get it. The headlights, they're that similar thing to the that Group C Sauber. They're like crab eyes on stalks. If anybody thinks I'm going to be going through the whole sanding process with these and snapping them off and all the other problems that there'll be with something like that, when I've got a solution that's much easier, and I've got another thing coming. I've gone over the headlights with just some 3000 grit, just to make sure that the plastic's clean, so to speak. But the way to actually shine those up, brand new jar of Tamiya Clear, not been thinned. Open it up, dip one of the crab eyes in there. Look at the difference. Then the other one. It might not reach it all the way into the solution because these jars don't come absolutely brimmed. And I can't say for sure that it's definitely brand new and that I've never used anything out of it. I just know it's not been thinned. And there we go. And all I've got to do is just put those down somewhere and not think about them, look at them or touch them for a day. And just like that, everything's hardened, the lights, the paint and the Sierra can go back together. We can actually call it complete. You can see, just when you can see it in the sun there, you can see the purpose of the mirror polishing, because although the colour's very dark, I mean it looks almost black in some lights, but it is a very, very dark blue. But you can see when the sun catches it, you can just see that metallic glinting of the polished metal underneath, because it wouldn't look like that without, if we hadn't mirror polished it, it wouldn't look like this, because there's absolutely no hint of any metallic flakes or anything in this window tint film, because it is just a translucent and quite opaque tinting solution. So you wouldn't get any kind of metallic. It would just look like a dark, very inky, very obscure kind of colour, whereas you can see when it catches the light, it becomes a very deep metallic blue, and you can still definitely see. You probably get a better idea of it when you're actually holding it in your hands and looking at it. I mean, not everything translates on the camera perfectly, but when you look at it in real life, you can still see the polished metal shining through, and it is still like technically a Spectraflame type of finish. It's just a much more subtle one than the rest. So 8 out of 10 completed. Among them, the two that I thought were going to be the hardest of the lot and probably wouldn't get finished until the end, and we'd probably have to drag out the series just to finish those two off. But no, the Ferrari and Sierra are there, done with the rest of them. So that leaves us with just two. Now, as I suspected, this little Tomica diorama is getting extremely crowded. Now, I've got something in mind for that. So, I mean, put it this way, the last instalment definitely isn't going to be all 10 of them attempting to crowd onto this little thing. I have got something in mind, and I might give some hint of that in the next instalment, which will be part 9 out of hopefully 10, so that should be the penultimate. Until then, thanks for watching.